Stoke-on-Trent is sadly becoming a rarity, a British city based on a traditional industry that's still thriving. There are still over 200 potteries around Stoke, producing, as they have for the last 2 centuries, the vast majority of cups and saucers, mugs and plates that we all use every day of our lives. One of the biggest of the potteries is Churchill, where more than 1,000 people make more than 1 million pieces of crockery a week. It's owned by the 3 Roper brothers, and they face a straightforward question. With static profits in the face of cheap competition from home and abroad, how can they secure their company's future? Can this traditional industry survive? Churchill are now looking forward to the advice of Sir John Harvey-Jones, a man with a reputation for steering companies towards healthy profitability.
The success of British industry in the mass market is really important for every man, woman and child in the country. If we can't make the ordinary things that we need, we have to earn even more money overseas to pay for them. The pottery industry is just the sort of industry this country needs if we're to maintain our standards of living and prosper. It's a heavy exporter. It supplies the overwhelming bulk of the home market. It's very important that it should continue to succeed. And that's why I'm particularly interested in looking at Churchill to see whether I can help them. Now, Churchill are massive producers of tableware, but they're not making any money in that business. So unless they can get that right, another chunk of British industry is going to start moving out.
I think our basic problem is that the domestic arm of the business is making a very poor return. I think it's true to say that the Churchill tableware soccer teams performed better than the domestic division this year. The main worry that I have is that we've got a big sausage machine to fill, and we feel absolutely committed to filling that machine. And some weeks we come into work and there's no orders to fill the sausage machine. So we all have to look around on a Monday morning and try to get orders in somehow.
About the prices.
Andrew Roper, the youngest of the 3 brothers, has always been the accountant. His main concern is to make sure the kilns are full and that they can sell the crockery they produce, mainly for the bottom end of the tableware market. But as that becomes harder, the key question the brothers debate is to what extent they should move up into the middle area of the market, from cheap boxed sets to the more expensive open shelves. It's a world of multicoloured designs where profits are greater, but the move would inevitably be risky.
Monsieur Churchill, s'il vous plaît. Ici Stephen Roper, Churchill. Avez-vous reçu les assiettes blancs?
Stephen Roper, the middle brother, is managing director and an adventurous salesman. Although he's always keen to find new markets, it can be a problem making the leap.
Les mugs.
My brothers and I do an enormous amount of soul searching. We're always looking for a consensus viewpoint, but inevitably there's far too much sitting on the fence, and perhaps we don't address the real questions and come up with the real decisions. My own gut feeling is that we've got to look at the middle area of the industry, where profits currently are much, much better than we get.
The company has a hotelware division that has been doing well, producing tougher crockery for the expanding restaurant business. Here they use more of the traditional skills like hand painting. It's looked after by the eldest brother, Michael Roper, who is regarded as the potter of the family.
I think the pots really gets into your soul. I think it's marvellous that you can actually see the fruits of your labour. And some of the things that I can remember that I was making in my youth, which is more time ago than I like to say, I can actually see in antique shops now.
But most of the company's output is domestic tableware where profits are weak. Michael will need most convincing that they should risk moving away from their traditional products.
Well, I think our major problem is quite simply that we're short of orders. I think that what I want to ask Sir John is, in his opinion, what have we done wrong? Is it simply that the marketplace and there is a recession on, or have we failed to take into account some factors over the last few years?
Now, I'm really looking forward to visiting the potteries. I've not seen them before. They've got a tremendous record. But this company's got a few problems, certainly looking at the accounts. They've brought in some new management and they're changing the designs. But I need to find out a lot more to know why they're not making enough money. I really need to investigate the whole thing. And as always, I'd like to start at the top. So I'm visiting Stephen Roper, the managing director, who's actually invited me to his home.
I've just looked at competitors' results. I've looked back over 10 years and said, are we really bashing our head against a brick wall? I can blame competition from other manufacturers. I can blame the pound.
Sure, one always can. But at the end of the day, the salvation is in your hands. It isn't in anybody else's.
I'd like you to see the various arguments that are put up about taking only a proportion of our domestic tableware production upmarket. I have a feeling that with incomes having gone up, the average man in the street is looking for something a little bit better and will pay a higher price.
I mean, there's a great temptation always to try and go up market, but going up market is bloody difficult. Unless you really have got some fantastic production advantage.
Yes.
And I haven't visited the factory, and I haven't, all I'm trying to do is to learn, actually. I have to tell you, to my shame, I have never, ever been to a pottery. This is a hell of a big factory, isn't it?
I think you're going to be quite interested tomorrow when you get into the factory. You'll find Michael the potter, Andrew the frustrated accountant, and undoubtedly you'll see a difference of approach on things.
We've never really been able to get away from that fill the kiln philosophy. My standpoint has always actually been to make sure that stocks are low, and I think about upmarket Steve has always tried to pursue the design side and try and enhance the added value of the product.
But he also says you write down the stocks with with a sledgehammer.
Well,
it's jolly interesting because differences are already beginning to emerge. Stephen, the salesman, wants to go up market and sell better things. Andrew, the accountant, wants to be more cautious, but just sell more and more of what he can already make and fill up the kiln. So, I mean, except that you do have a problem. You see, you are trapped to some degree. The sausage machine has actually got you by the balls because, I mean, in reality, you've got to stay with them. You feel you've got to stay with the business. It's the business that, after all, is your heritage.
Yes.
It's great to leave the numbers and the theories and get down to the factory floor, which is real, where it actually all goes on. Factory floors speak to you, and it's here that I'll get the clues as to why they're not making the money.
We're making here a mug. Yeah. Again, using a plaster mould, an automatic process.
One of the new team of directors, Eddie Orme, who's responsible for managing production, is taking me around. I've got to try and find out whether there aren't other ways in which they can achieve better what they're doing now.
In the dryer, onto the turntable. As you can see, he's working way in front of the people. Now this is where we come to the interesting bit.
But I mean, I would have thought that job was an absolute natural to be mechanised.
The job he's doing. It is indeed. Basically here, we make our plates and our sauces now.
My first impressions are there are quite a lot of machines, but there are far, far more people doing rather ordinary jobs.
Yeah, I'm again afraid it's fairly repetitious.
But they really are. I mean, there's not much visible skill in this, is there?
No, a lot of jobs in the forming process have been de-skilled.
I mean, really, this is almost working instead of machines, isn't it?
That's right.
Figaro, son qua, hey, Figaro, son qua, Figaro qua, Figaro là, Figaro qua, Figaro là, Figaro su, Figaro giù, Figaro su, Figaro giù, pronto prontissimo, son come un fulmine, sono il fantotum della città, della città, della città, della città, della città. Ah bravo Figaro, bravo bravissimo, ah bravo Figaro, bravo bravissimo, fortunatissimo, fortunatissimo, fortunatissimo per verità. Ah bravo Figaro, bravo bravissimo, ah bravo Figaro, bravo bravissimo, a te fortuna, a te fortuna, a te fortuna non mancherà. Oro il fagoto della città.
A lot of people in this city still put handles on by hand.
Yeah.
We get a young person from school, there's a machine that can touch it for speed,
Really?
labour intensive.
Yeah, but the trouble is, that actually represents the very danger that you're in, doesn't
Indeed it does.
Because I mean, our labour, it will always be more expensive
Indeed it does.
than somebody else's.
And these two ladies,
Do they
ago,
do nothing but that?
They do nothing but that.
Doesn't that drive them up the wall?
No. They sing.
Figaro, son qua, ehi, Figaro. Son qua, Figaro qua, Figaro là, Figaro qua, Figaro là, Figaro su, Figaro giù, Figaro su, Figaro giù, prontissimo.
When I look at this factory floor, and I see some of the jobs being done by robots, but an awful lot of the other jobs, which are being done by men and women, are really robotic in nature. They're below human dignity. I can see some things which require real skill, but an awful lot of the things are really using people as a substitute for machines, and that isn't right. Now, I happen to believe if people are doing jobs which could be done by robots, it's a bad use of people.
My gosh, there's an awful lot of handwork in this, isn't there?
The interesting thing is there is partial automation here. This automatic cup handling machine here is absolute magic.
Yeah. We got the strap. This is an innovation that's come about this last 12 months.
That's a
we put
vast
2 or 3
improvement,
up.
isn't it?
Yeah, and that is taking off the spare.
Yeah. What does a machine like this cost?
This one is just under £9,000.
What happens if you look away, mate? Does the whole thing get...
Get in the rhythm, don't you? Get in the rhythm, it keeps going.
I mean, when you look at it, the cost of the thing is so small. The payback period is under a year. I can't understand why there are only 2 of them.
What surprises me about the factory is an enormous amount of handling.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had a fairy godfather arrived and showered money on you like no tomorrow, what do you reckon you could actually spend in the factory? And what would you then save in the way of labour?
Well, you touched on that we are labour intensive. In fact, I think about 40% of our costs still are on labour.
Well, that has to be the area which you're going after, doesn't it?
I believe so, yeah.
You know, that's our job, unfortunately, whether we like it or not.
And
what I'm looking for is where the room for improvement in the factory.
I think these middle managers are jolly good. They really want to make their factory more efficient. But they're not being given their headroom, and they're not being allowed to spend the money.
But nothing alters the job of the production man.
That we haven't actually answered. Let me just try and explain.
I'm trying to get a feeling of how ambitious you are in terms of the pressures you set on yourselves and therefore the demands you put on capital.
You've seen
and what you could do. I mean, just at a guess, I guess that if you really put the capital in, you could probably reduce your numbers by 100.
Figaro, son qua, ehi, Figaro. Son qua, Figaro qua, Figaro là, Figaro qua, Figaro là, Figaro su, Figaro giù, Figaro su, Figaro giù, prontissimo, son come un fulmine, sono i fantomi.
Fantastic! You had the world speed record. Let's see it again.
Ah bravo Figaro, bravo bravissimo, ah bravo Figaro, bravo bravissimo, fortunatissimo, fortunatissimo, fortunatissimo per verità. Ah bravo Figaro, bravo bravissimo, ah bravo Figaro, bravo bravissimo, a te fortuna, a te fortuna, a te fortuna non mancherà. Sono il fagoto della città, sono il fagoto della città, della città, della città, della città.
It's the first time I've ever felt sorry for a machine. I reckon you can knock spots off that. How long have you been doing this?
I've been back here 16 years, so I've been doing it 16
Doing
years.
that the whole time?
Yeah.
Well, no wonder you know how to do it.
I absolutely hate losing jobs from a factory. But the problem is, unless they're fully efficient and competitive with the best in the world, the whole factory will go. Even if they're fully efficient, that's still, in my judgment, not going to be enough. So I'm sure they're right to be trying to go up market. They have a new vital product, which is called meal fleur, on which a lot of hopes are pinned. But the question is, can they keep going after that? So now I need to go to the design office to see whether they can really produce the ongoing support. See all these wonders. John Harvey-Jones, my name.
Hello. Peter Conley.
And you?
Design Development Manager.
You're the other part of the other half of design, right? First of all, they showed me the sort of competition they're up against, and that's pretty tough.
I have to just do these by machine.
Well, you see, that's a totally different class. That's a totally
This is a company we're aiming to sort of get to that similar standard to that.
Yes.
Give me some idea of what you're spending on design.
Well, the problem is too little, I think. The feeling that it's just not there, the investment in the design. We could spend a lot, couldn't we, Peter?
Yeah. Okay, but what would a plate cost?
Well, for an average price, we could get a 10-inch plate design for £150, and that's to buy it outright.
Well, I think that's absolutely monstrous. I mean, I find it absolutely unbelievable that you can buy a design for a plate for £150. You can.
It's a matter of shopping around. I think
well, I just don't believe that this industry is going to survive if it pays its designers 150 quid for a design. I mean, how many? You've got to sell one. Well, you've got to certainly sell one a week, even if you're going to starve.
But I think even though it's still as cheap as it is, we need to spend a lot more money on design. We need to flood the place with design.
You mean even at £150 a plate, you're not buying enough designs?
We just aren't spending enough money on design.
I mean, give me some idea what you're spending on design.
Buying plates or design for mugs, I don't think we spend more than 5,000 or 6,000 a year.
Definitely not. No.
Well, it'd be difficult not to go up market from that, wouldn't it?
I mean, obviously, there are lots of add-ons from there, you know, for people to take the plate from
buy Mars bars for that.
to take a piece of paper to the screens to make the plates. It does cost a.
There's a lot more involved.
Sure. No, I know.
But I mean, that's the initial spark.
But that's the investment.
The thing that's going to.
Right.
That's the investment that's going in design, which is the basis on which the products in this factory had to be sold.
Yes.
Well, I should go and have a beer.
Well, it's a strong pull.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, love.
Thank you.
I just find this whole designer thing absolutely unbelievable. Here's this company taking on the best in the world and spending £5,000 a year on design. It's the same old story all over again. Oh, hello. Very glad to meet you. Heard a lot about you. Now I want to go and see another of the new directors, Bernard Burns, who's been brought in to be in charge of marketing. You know, the new range that you're going to launch. Given the poverty of design, I really need to understand what his plans are for going up market and making more money, and what part he sees Mille Fleur playing in all of this.
Well, it's quite a radical departure from what we've done before.
Yes.
In that, first of all, it's on the faceted shape, which, although we've been running it for a year, is new. Edge banding is something that we've never done before at this factory. We are aiming at between £25 and £30 with this range.
Well, that's more like it, isn't it? And the extra costs of the range? I mean, there must be some extra costs.
Well, there's a substantial extra cost. In fact, we probably aren't making any more return on this range than we are on our standard range.
Well, you've got
in
to
a boxed set.
Yeah. Yes, but you're still not making the money, are you? Again, how are you? I'm appalled at the amount, or shaken at the amount of money you spend on design here. How little you spend on design. I mean, are you planning to, as a part of your strategy, to spend more on design?
I believe we can establish a toehold in the middle market with this product as it stands.
Yeah, but then you're going to have to try and follow this with another two.
That's right. I don't think it's impossible to come up with design.
How long did it take to launch this?
From conception through to now, it's probably been 8 months.
Well, in fact, you really need the son of this one on the stocks now. This must take a tremendous amount of concentration.
Sometimes they're being cut.
Before I go and see Peter Siddle, the chairman in London, I want to give my first impressions to all three brothers together. You know, things start at the top. You're not actually driving the cost. And you're not actually, with the exception of one experiment, you don't actually have a plan which is going to actually move you up market. And going up market doesn't merely mean selling nicer things which make you all feel happier. It means getting some more margin, something more to go at. I mean, what is the marketing plan? Is the marketing plan to have 5 mille fleurs out within,
well, yes,
3 years?
You know, to foresee the future. Meal fleur is just being shown.
Make the future.
Meal fleur is just being shown to the trade and agreed at the moment to a limited part of the trade.
I think that the meal fleur is a very important first step. But there's not much point in taking a first step unless you actually have plans which show how you could then transform that business.
Really, I think we'd all admit, wouldn't we, that the marketing side, from our point of view, has been a bit seat of the pants for quite a few years. And with Bernard really only taking that position over 6 months ago, yes, we've got to give it more depth of thought in terms of what comes after.
You need a marketing plan. You know, you really do need a marketing plan of at least as much sophistication.
But I'm confident that's coming together. Okay, it might not be apparent, I think, from today's visit. Hopefully,
well, it certainly isn't apparent to me from today's visit, and I'm beginning to sound nasty about all of this. I really am not. But what did Bernard say to me? He said he thought that you needed to be market-led. Of course, every business should be. I mean, I'm amazed actually at this position because all three of you love selling, and all three of you know the market, and all three of you feel the market, and yet in some extraordinary way, you've been grabbed by the kiln. You know, this is the problem.
Whatever we do, it's not going to be a quick recipe.
What I would do in your shoes, I would tell your new managers, first of all tell your works manager there to produce for you a plan of how quickly he could get you cost savings by saving what money. I'd also turn around to Bernard, he's got the job, and he's a bright lad, and say to him, right, I need another $1 million on the margin within 2 years. Produce me a plan that's going to do that.
And here I think perhaps you're touching on this area of how we act as shareholder directors and how we make the best use of our directors that we brought into the company in the last 2 years.
Absolutely right, which is one of the next areas that I want to have a look at. I think that if you're not addressing, you see, this is certainly the problem the three of you should actually be addressing.
Where do we sit? We're part executive, part shareholders. Because if we don't slot in properly, don't expect the people below us to fit in correctly.
I mean, I think there is a sort of difference of opinion here. I think you're going to be somewhat disillusioned if you think that merely giving somebody a task to do is going to be the answer to the problem. I don't think it is. I think at the end of the day, you've still got to be in there keeping an eye on things.
But it shouldn't be at the expense of upsetting those people that we've charged to carry out a job for us. Take the example with Andrew 2 weeks ago when Bernard was on business in Ireland, suddenly deciding that he wasn't going to accept a particular order on mugs. Now, what Andrew said might have been right, but I think the procedure should have been that he waited for Bernard to come back from Ireland.
I'm sure that Sir John will be charging Peter Siddall with the job of actually sorting out what we do.
The whole point of this meeting with the non-executive chairman, Peter Siddall, is to try and get the three brothers to pull together for a common aim. They all seem to me to have clear ideas of where they'd like to be, but they aren't getting there. I need to understand why this is and what Peter can do about it.
The brothers own the firm. The brothers have a good record. it's very easy to take a snapshot at this point in time and say, couldn't they do better? And indeed, my job, I suppose...
But they can do better.
They can certainly do better, and I spend a lot of my time trying to tell them that. What I can't get them necessarily to do is to believe that wholeheartedly at every stage of the process.
No, I can see that. And of course, this brings us right back to the family nature of the business.
Yes.
And so, in some ways, it is the brothers' ambition which is the limitation on the capability of the whole business.
I, unfortunately, am a part-timer who comes in once a month or maybe twice a month to help through the formal management processes, and my plan is the pincers.
Yes.
I see myself putting a certain amount of pressure on them from where I sit in the board meetings, arguing for agreement, for clarification, but changing your spots to the extent of adopting a much more strategic emphasis and making plans is quite a big pill to swallow.
Nevertheless, that's the pill that they've actually formulated for themselves. So, I mean, they're in the position where they've actually got the pill set up. The difficulty they're having is in swallowing it. And my job is to try and get that pill a bit further down their gullets and get them to be much more ambitious. Because after all, they're a bloody family firm.
That's right, but that's a very big step to take from the, the North Staffordshire and big fish.
Yeah, but it'd be nice to be big, very successful fish, rather than big, happy fish.
Well, that's not a bad car.
Seen anything? Yes, the fish I saw earlier on was only about 5 yards out. I think Stephen could probably just about cover that.
You're getting a bit better, Andrew.
Trying to cover the water. Lord Thurso says keep your fly in the water.
Battle 1 from Walsall, falling at Wedgwood, Barleston, Stoke, Northern Bridge, Sefton, Cambridge.
Peter Siddle plainly sees the potential as I do. But he's really not pushing them hard enough, and it'll take too long. What I've got to do now is to find some sort of lever to really galvanise them into activity. Because that's what's needed, a real change here. No company can succeed unless it is absolutely single-minded and led clearly. Now, they've given you the poison chalice, Stephen, by making you the managing director.
It's gone downhill ever since.
Thanks very much. But making one of you the managing director doesn't mean a damn thing. What matters is that the three of you are pursuing a consistent dream and an ambitious dream, a dream which is near the best that the company, by anybody's view, can do. Now, Peter has told me he's failed to get you fired up. And I'm sure he has.
Oh, he hasn't
and no, he's achieved some real things. But he sees, as I do, a potential for the company much greater than it is. And he sees a reluctance on the part of the three of you to get your act together to achieve that.
I do feel that part of the problem is that it's because we've tried to work together as three brothers, because we're not very contentious, and therefore nobody is having a total single-mindedness about one particular company or route.
You're not contentious for two reasons. You're doing just well enough.
Yes.
You're doing just well enough, so you don't have to be
and if
contentious.
it gets worse,
if the business starts to fall apart, you'll get contentious all right.
Absolutely.
The trouble is, it's been just good enough.
I think the main problem, though, with the domestic side of the business is that we have tried in the past to bring new products out. We have tried to get a better return on some sales, but we keep on coming back to being defensive year after year.
But you're a big company now. And you're facing now some very hard choices. You've got three damn good executives. I've seen them all briefly. There's nothing the matter with them. But you've got them and you're paying them. But inevitably, until you got yourself sorted out, I think you're going to find it more difficult.
I think we have addressed some of those questions, actually.
I'm sure
we
you
may
have.
not have totally concluded what the answers are.
Yes.
It's only in the last 18 months that we have appointed these executives.
bringing Bernard Burns through to deal
Stephen,
with the sales
18
and marketing.
months, you see, you get really good executives in position. I'd expect them to be hit the ground running, and I'd expect them to be actually delivering for you within 6 months.
Yeah.
Now, I'd like to see you do two things simultaneously. First thing I would really like to see you do, I'd like to see the three of you charge Bernard and Eddie and David to produce for you a plan which is going to improve the profit of the tableware division by £1 million next year. That plan has got to involve designs, machinery, capital expenditure, improvements in productivity, reductions in manning, the lot.
We've got to guide them.
That's your choice. You can give them as much room or as little room as you want.
I'm not sure. I still think it's up to us with the experiences that we've had to try to determine a plan.
Now, they were the purpose for asking them for the plan and their proposals is, first of all, to get their commitment to what they're going to do, and secondly, for you to see what they can bloody well do. And give these guys you've hired the headroom and say, right, you get it, but the three of us are telling you, this is what we want out of the hotelware business. This is what we've got to get out of the tableware business. This is where the mugs have got to be. And you're driving the broad strategy, but you're not actually running the business. Now, they might surprise you, or they may produce what they think you want.
Yes.
My guess is at the moment, well, I suspect they may produce what they think you want. But the art, honestly, is to keep pressing them until they tell you that you're wrong.
Since Sir John's visit, we've all been quite excited because it seems to have generated a lot of interest. And what Sir John has done has sort of made us aware of some of the immediate needs. And the directors have come to me and said, get yourself a shopping list together, Paul.
Sir John's given me a greater sense of urgency to tackle some of these problems. The truth is, though, there are quite a few emotional issues between the three of us which aren't quickly going to be solved.
When we actually started this programme, we were specifically thinking about product, about exchange rates, about competition in the marketplace, and in actual fact he's rather personalised the thing and really said, you know, that we've got to get ourselves sorted out before all those other problems can be dealt with. Now, just whether we can do it or not, I'm not sure.
Since his first visit, we've already charged management on the tableware factory to look again at capital investment. We've already given Bernard new tasks to do. And on the new product side, Bernard's going to have to deliver the goods next year, and if he can't come in with at least £500,000 worth of turnover, then he's failed.
The three brothers have come to us and given us instructions on putting a budget together and really blown the thing open and said, you do what you want. If you want to buy equipment in order to make cost savings, buy equipment. If you want to sack half the workforce, sack half the workforce. I mean, I don't think when it came right down to it, they'd actually have the guts to go through with some of the things, but they've at least allowed the discussion to take place. As a consequence of Sir John's comments, it has become apparent to us that we need everybody to be aware of which direction the company is going. So we're going to a dinky little hotel not very far from Stoke, and we're just going to thrash the thing through for a day and a half, discussing what price to sell the merchandise at, how much loss to make in a year, you know, all those sorts of things.
Stock, and we've got to get away from this basic competitive 20-piece set type of business which we've been in for so long.
The other thing that we've really got to be talking about is where do we develop on the meal fleur product? Where do we go next in our design portfolio? And there's a lot of mileage in that shape.
I think we ought to be prepared to sort of come off the fence, spend a bit of money and put our house in order. At the end of the day, you own the company. If you want to launch an unsuccessful design, I mean, that's your prerogative.
We were saying before that we've had 30 designs done this year.
Yeah.
Stephen's saying next year he wants 300. I suspect we'll end up somewhere between the two.
I feel that in the last 3 months an enormous amount of life has been breathed into the organisation, and I think that's partly as a result of Sir John's visit, and it creates enthusiasm. You know, you feel much happier about going to work. I mean, you want to go, you want to get into it. I sort of been there till 9 and 10 o'clock at night, and I've not been the last one to go, which is absolutely amazing. Because our resources are so limited. When the managing director walks into the office and says, "Do this for me," you can't tell him to bog off.
Yeah, I mean, he just like designers.
We haven't got enough people. We haven't got enough people to do what we're doing at the moment and do it professionally.
I think we've agreed on that, Bernard. Where we stand with Meal Fleur is this is the best research product we've ever had. We've done all the work on it, and really and truly now all we can hope for, this is going to help us along the road towards differentiation and a more profitable and a more consistent business which breaks us out once and for all of the cheap end. And I'm afraid that the only person who's going to decide that is the customer, and the first step towards finding out that is the Birmingham Fair.
I'm really chuffed at the end of all this. It's taken a lot of courage on the part of the brothers, and I admire them greatly for it. They delegated responsibility, they've set ambitious targets to their managers, and they're going to really find out what this company can do. But I'm still not convinced they got their act together, and I hope they do, because it's on people like this and companies like this that all of our prosperity depends.
The fair, we've had excellent results, far better than we ever imagined. It's going to make us invest in design in that middle area of the market in a very big way. I think Sir John has certainly had an influence on all of us in the need to delegate in the business. It's quite apparent to me that over the last 3 months Michael has come round to a more positive way.
There are some of the things that one did in all walks of life when one was young that enjoyed doing. But I'm happy that the new management and the new executives and people are the only way to go. The company cannot get bigger unless we delegate more.
I, as an individual, find it very hard to think more than 5 years ahead, but I'd certainly like to see Churchill as a national name. I think we've got a good team and there's a lot of potential.